I would like to introduce our next session. It is a panel. It was the Swartland Evolution. Our next session brings together the people who helped define one of the most recognizable wine movements in South Africa, the Swartland Revolution. The panel, or rather this panel, will explore how a disruptive idea turned into a long-term sustainable model. Please welcome our moderator, I think, David. David has been speaking and practicing for this moment today, as you heard him.
Cut myself in.
Awesome. David, if you can...
I'm going to sit over here because
you can
I'm certainly not... I shouldn't be center stage when these guys are up here, so I'm going to sit in the corner.
Perfect.
I'm more used to that anyway.
Alongside the Swartland legends is Chris and Andrea Molyneux. Please give them a round of applause. So exciting. I only see you guys on Instagram. This is a big moment for me. Welcome.
Far away from David.
Awesome. Good to see you. And then we have Kali Low. We all know him for the porcelain bag, which is just beautiful. I hope he brought me a bottle. Did you bring my bottle? Did you forget it? And then we've got Eben Sadi. Welcome, Eben.
Thank you.
I was just telling Eben how I've been speaking about him all morning. And then, last but not least, the handsome Adi Badenhorst.
Sensei. Thanks, Loretta.
Thank you very much. Just quick one. Andrew, what's the time on here? I just wanted to make sure what time do we have to finish up by?
Finish up by 2.
Today?
1:30.
You be well behaved, Kali. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you more questions, all the dumb ones you don't like. Okay. Welcome everybody. My name is David Clark from Ex Animo. I'm here on short notice, replacing Pam Makabele, also from Ex Animo, who was supposed to be here. She's far more social and bright and pretty and. I'm just a shitter version of Pam, to be honest. So she's not feeling very well. She's safe at home in bed. I think she's having a glass of Shannon right now in sympathy to us. But thank you very much for WineLab for this event. What a great idea. I hope these sort of think tanks can happen more often because, I mean, by this morning's efforts and content, it's a very useful space to express opinions and it's a nice size as well, where, you know, all voices can get heard. So thank you very much. For those who missed the morning session, you missed a few extraordinarily hard to interpret graphs. There are no graphs in this presentation. We're going to stay away from anything that requires a percentage or a plus sign or a minus sign or a bar graph. But Banana's here, so we're happy he's returned. That's great. Okay. I'm going to read the introduction that was supplied to me. So these are not my words. They're far too beautiful. This discussion will explore how a handful of renegade winemakers helped spark a movement that redefined not just a region, but global perceptions of South African fine wine. What began as a rebellious anti-establishment push against industry norms, old vines over clones, authenticity over conformity, low intervention over manipulation, has grown into a respected, sustainable force in the South African wine landscape. The Swartland pioneers helped elevate Chenin Blanc as a serious, single varietal white wine and proved that Syrah and Rhone-style blends, Rhone-style reds, could thrive in tough, dry farmed conditions. A quarter of a way into the 21st century, the wines are in high demand globally. The vineyards are farmed with an eye on longevity, and the same voices that once disrupted the system are now helping shape its future. The whole world now drinks Chenin because of them. How does that make them feel? Good question. Adi, how does that make you feel?
David, the last 16 years have gone past in the blink of an eye. But it's been exciting being in the Swartland. And, the thing is, when I first came up to Joburg in the 90s, I had a girlfriend lived in Berea and Yeovil. No judgment there, please. And I'd come up to this place, and there was an amazing sense of a pride in being like trader. There was a different energy here in Johannesburg. And I've always kept that in mind. Our family had like farm stalls, and they liked to smoke stuff. And I think here in the Swartland, but that pride in trading and no nonsense and without pretense, spend less money on your marketing, but just get the job done and do something honestly. Because the Swartland, the revolution was never started from a marketing movement. It was just putting a flag in the ground.
We'll get there, but how does the world drinking Chenin Blanc make you feel, was the question.
Was that the question? You had a massive preamble.
I
there.
did, sorry.
We're
going to go around.
Well, listen.
You're going to be the first.
It is an amazing grape, and I'm very happy that you all know what Chenin Blanc is.
Gibbon, how does it make you feel?
Don't be sad, no.
Pumped to be here, by the way. Pumped. Look at him.
So sad. Look. Lift those shoulders up, man. Sit the biggie.
No, we worked
He was a good man.
No, we worked out if people kept on drinking swimming pool Sauvignon Blanc, we might lose a big percentage of our nation. So, something had to be done. And but Chenin is just an extraordinary grape, and it's, a lot of things has got to do it's not even that much engineering or anything. It's just being at the right place at the right time. But it's not about marketing again. It's just doing things step for step for the right reasons. And but it is great. And I've been all of us have been traveling a lot to France. It's the only grape when you go to France. When we go with our Chenins to the Loire, you can see the French. They're intimidated by our Chenins. And when you can intimidate a Frenchman at the wine game, it's a mega feeling.
You're doing something right.
Yeah. So, they are an incredible wine nation, but they very much respect what's been done in South Africa.
Very cool. Gully, keep it short if you can, mate.
The Chenin thing. I don't know anything about Chenin, man. No, we actually had a nice long talk with Miguel Chang in the hotel, and apparently there was a guy that used to come into the restaurant every day for 3 years, and he drank 3 bottles of Sauvignon Blanc. So we fucked that up. That's all I know about Chenin.
Young lady?
It's not the first time people are drinking this much Chenin Blanc, but it's the first time people are calling it Chenin Blanc. And I think that's a really important factor. For the amount of Chenin Blanc we have planted in South Africa today matches the amount of Chenin Blanc that was planted in California in the 1980s. But people didn't call it Chenin Blanc. It actually went into a jug wine. This is going to be so laughable, but it was called Chablis. And then you look at Lieberstein from the 60s and 70s, but it wasn't called Chenin Blanc, even though that was a blend. And then you look at Vouvray and Montlouis, you're not calling it Chenin Blanc. So it is part of the revolution of Chenin Blanc now is that people are calling it by name, and I think that's incredible.
Very good point. They were calling Semillon Chablis and White Burgundy, which is a bit of a tautology in Australia back in the same time. So. Chris or John, you go by your Johannesburg name.
Yeah, that's Chris. So, I want to finish Artie's train of thought because we're like on the same plane, and I just remember coming here for the first time in the not the 90s, Artie. So I'm a little bit younger than you, but in the early 2000s, and trying to sell our white wines here, and there was 2 things that we had. Most people immediately said, "Oh, we don't sell Swartland wine." And we don't sell Chenin Blanc. And to have come to 20 years later where we are now, it's awesome. It's rewarding. It's fantastic. But I think as Adi alluded to, as Eben alluded to, it wasn't done with a specific 10-point plan. It was just doing the right thing in the right place and communicating it properly. So it's awesome.
Cool. Very cool. Today. this session is a bit of an entree to the main course that is Victoria Mason's tasting later. So you're going to get really geeky on individual wines and stories and stuff. But I want to talk more about the story of the Swartland Revolution and the history and politics and landscapes that surround that time. You've all got your own origin stories about how you ended up in the Swartland. Was there at any point any other serious consideration to go somewhere else? Like how far along on a different path did anybody else get, or was it always destined to be the Swartland for all of you?
Are you going to go down the line again? Look, obviously...
Eben had a bit of a flirt with Spain for a bit, obviously.
Yeah. No, I mean, I haven't had that flirt overseas. I grew up in Constantia. Obviously loved to have a piece of land in Constantia, but, my cash flow was quite restrictive. But my first winemaking job was in the Swartland. It was at a place called Grote Post, which is it was in the Swartland in those days. Grote Post made a concerted effort to move out of the Swartland because the Swartland had such a bad name, and they moved into the coastal region. So my first job was at the Swartland, and then back in Stellenbosch. And then when I left Rustenburg, I looked around. I turned around there at a place called Spanjaards Kloof there by Elim.
Oh, okay.
Up there, and I had a look at Grabouw and those places, and they weren't like pretty to me. It was very cloudy, and there was no openness, too many apples, busy road driving through there. And I was drawn back to the Swartland, because I bought grapes in the past. Remember Cully, we used to buy the Porceleinberg, he used to come to Rustenburg in those days. So there was always that angle of the Swartland, and a piece of land became...
How close did you get to any of the others? Was it just sort of like a little peek and see what's there and then...
No, have a chat and have a look and see these places, but no, never...
You were super serious.
How serious?
I don't know.
Or any people, anybody anyway. I don't know.
Cool. Eben, was at any point you were going to make wine in South Africa anywhere else?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have worked in a number of places in Europe, and my career kind of started in cool climate aspects, be it Germany, Austria, and northern Italy. I worked, and then so I was quite initially into the cool climate thing. So when I came back and thought, okay, I've got to do something here in South Africa, wanted to do something, I first went down to the Yamana Valley. Ooh. But the problem is if you don't have a double barrel surname, you can't make a wine there. You've got to be a Hamilton Russell or a
Newton
Johnson, and so it goes on. So, no, it's just, yes, but so looked at that. Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, kind of done. For me, it was I wanted to be involved in a pioneering aspect, and not I'm kind of more of a pioneer spirit and not a settler spirit. So I wanted to be involved with. Then I looked at the Ceres Plateau up in the Koabokkerveld, but again, like Adi said, I also didn't come from a family of money or wine history, so. Fruit trees producing up on the Ceres Plateau was a big business, and buying still is. And buying there would have been, it was just out of my reach. And then I was the lucky one that got a job at Spice Route, which was kind of the first new small private winery that was built in the Swartland. And through that exposure, once I could touch the different soils and the grapes, it was basically game over. Yeah, it's. You only need to pick a ton of Swartland fruit if you make wine for it to be truly game over. Yeah.
Gully?
My first real work was Vondeling in the Fort Paardeberg, and then Chris and Andrea moved to do their own thing. They called me, and I was getting into organics, and where I wasn't too keen on that, and cruised across the Swartland into Tulbagh. That didn't last long. Mark Kent from Boekenhout gave me a ring in 2009 and said that they bought this place, Porceleinberg, and I thought back to our times at Rustenburg, and I was like, yeah, change is as good as a holiday. And cruised in there, and it's been fun. That's more or less it.
And Melanixes?
Yeah, I mean, in 2007, just before we got married, Chris and I had been working for a few years together, originally working together in Tolbach, where Chris had been working since the end of university days. But when we were in Tolbach, it was young vineyards that were organically farmed, so it took a little bit longer to get production up and running. And we'd been introduced to quite a few amazing Swartland vineyards by Eben, because Chris, sorry, I'm speaking on your behalf now, because Chris and Eben worked together a bit and was a great mentor to Chris. And so it was an amazing opportunity to be experimenting with these amazing Swartland vineyards that were otherwise not being used for amazing purposes at that point in time. So in 2004 to 2007, we were working with them.
Just to stop you there, just quick. How did you think you recognised that potential and others didn't, or is it just a case of having a broader perspective on wine?
Maybe to jump in. So in Tulbach, where we were working, as Andrew said, it was a new winery, new vineyard. So while we were waiting for the vineyards to get into production, we purchased fruit and rented vineyards from all over the Cape. So Elgin, Stellenbosch, Robertson, Swartland, all over the show. And a couple of things happened over those 4 or 5 years. We got to know the farmers of the Swartland very well. We got to know obviously the different parts of the Swartland. But by making wine from the different places, every year at the end of the year when we were looking at the wines that we had in barrel, by far our favorite wines were the wines that we had made from the Swartland. It just resonated with our style of winemaking. So that was the one thing, the quality that we saw, the potential. Obviously, the cost of land at the time was affordable, but also the people. I think Swartland it has a very specific climate. It's dry, it's sunny, it's windy, it's dusty, and I always talk about that as a fantastic filter. That climate has an impact on the vines and our terroir, but it also has an impact on the people who are there. And it, if you're a she person who doesn't like hardship or tough times, you're not going to end up in the Swartland, and you're definitely not going to end up farming in the Swartland. And it just it just brings these incredible people there, and that's what drew us to it. It's real, down to earth people who farm properly, and what comes out of the ground, it has this incredible character that's formed by this incredible landscape. So it was in our mind there was not even a second option. It was, we're going to Swartland.
And Chris and I didn't come from winemaking families, so we didn't inherit land or buildings or a story from anywhere. And so we could start that from scratch. We could write it ourselves. And so when we met and started dating, we were in the south of France, so fell in love with that kind of the landscape in the Mediterranean climate. But we could have gone back to California, where I was from. We could have stayed in France, but the Swartland is what drew us as where we wanted to create, our core, our origin story.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a intersection between the place, the fact that there was land there to use and of high quality as well, and wasn't too expensive, etc., etc. So a few things had to converge for that to be true.
And the potential quality.
Yeah, and the potential quality, obviously. South Africa, when I was learning about wine back in the 1850s or whenever that was, wasn't really taken that seriously. And then it's, over the last 2 decades or so, become very, very serious. And a huge part of that is due to the 5 people on my right. And obviously Mark Kent, who's not here today, but deserves a big mention also. And obviously around that Swartland Revolution, we've just had the 15th anniversary of the first one, which was a nice party. Thanks, Artie.
Still recovering.
Yeah. How did that... Who's... The genesis of that idea, because we were talking about it, well, it was alluded to this morning as a massive win for South African wine in general, the story of South African wine, taking it international, being taken seriously, like-minded producers of a high quality, all getting together on a cohesive, similar path, working together. was quite unusual. How did that come about? I'm not sure who. I mean, Cully, it's going to be hard to shut him up. But
I wasn't there. I'm still just hanging on.
Okay.
These guys.
You're carrying the coats.
Come on,
just hanging on.
Yeah, but you could tell a story.
No, I think there's two aspects. We all grew up together. We all studied together. I was a little bit ahead of Chris, but I met Adi at Stellenbosch. I met Chris and Cully and everything. So
were you in Mark's year as well?
Mark Kent, yeah. Mark Kent, everyone. Mark Kent was sleeping in the next room. So I stayed in the same dorm at Elsenburg. There was a lot of connectivity between us already. So it was forged in our student years over drinking bottles of Tassenberg and Oevermeer, which was hard, but we did it. But I think so that was one thing. It was that forged of friendship. So we're very comfortable with each other, living and being in each other's homes. All our children kind of grow up amongst each other again. So hopefully that can forge another generation forward. So that was the one ingredient. We kind of, Mark Kent, myself, a number of us, we the youngest qualified winemakers in the New South Africa. So we were just there in 1994 when things started happening. So there was also that thing. And then the last thing is...
Sorry, even to Rocky here, but what did that bring? Was it sort of just the world opening up?
It's the world we're opening up. Before 1994 we've all worked internationally. Before 1994, the only door that was open was to Geisenheim in Germany. And we could go and work at Germany, and our mentors like Ross Gower and Donnie de Wet and Herman Kirschbaum and those guys, they all made their turn through Geisenheim. So there was this Geisenheim door into Germany, always kept a small door open for us, but we couldn't get the exposure. So when 1994 hit, we could go anywhere in the world on our own passports, and we could go and study and work with the best. And we all could get a very early on exposure to what fine wine looks like. Because you must remember, in the apartheid embargo up to that point, there was no room for creativity because there was no market for creativity. So people stopped dreaming about things. So we were just privileged that we could start dreaming from the day we were qualified and create things that couldn't exist before.
And what were those dreams? I mean, if you can cast your mind back.
I just sent Adi a picture the other day of us tasting. One of our tasting groups was called Milestones. And, just the people in that room at that time, we did everything we could to get our hands on the fine wines of the world. We didn't have always the cash. We sometimes, 4 of us lumped together to buy a bottle of wine and would literally sit there and taste 1 or 2 bottles of wine to say, these are the wines people, because we didn't know. Nobody knew. You can talk about Petrus all day long, but if you don't drink Petrus, you can't really talk about Petrus or what's happening in the Plateau of Pomerol or what's happening in Tuscany. Now, the definitions going in Tuscany and all of that, and region stuff. And I think we were very fortunate that we could from early on have massive exposure. And I think we all believe in the power of the collective, that it's not an individual. One star can't be a constellation. You need if there was one star in the cosmos, we wouldn't even know it exists because you would be damn lucky to spot it. So we know there's stars because there's a hell of a lot of them. So it's kind of, I was really struggling from 1997 to the point that Adi basically arrived. Adi arrived at Grotepost, but a little bit on the side. But only once he moved to Karl Moesfontein and started AA Barnos Wines, and then the Porceleinberg, Molyneux, then the momentum could start properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously it took a lot of organisation and a lot of agreement. It wasn't just sort of a general idea. You did have to put something in place for that first revolution to happen. I mean, someone, as you say, you can talk about it all you want, but unless you do it, it hasn't actually happened yet. It's not. You have to make it manifest. How did that actually happen? Who was the driver there?
Yeah, I think there was, we had always, like I said just now, I would come up here or go to Durban and say, hi, I'm Chris from Mullineux in the Swartland, and people are like, oh, Swartland, no, we're not interested. And at first it kind of confounded me, because in my mind I knew how special the place was, how beautiful it was, how amazing the wines were. And talking to everybody, we realized what we needed to do was bring people to the Swartland, to make them realize what the place was about, that it's not, Swartland wasn't a winery. A lot of people thought it was just a cooperative.
So it was just sort of naivety that you had to fight, or was it sort of deliberate ignorance?
It was just
people didn't care?
People
or they
associated the region with a big cooperative winery that was called Swartland Winery. So we realized we needed to bring people to the region to experience the place firsthand. Because I can come and tell you about the place, but unless you've been there and stood in the vineyard and seen the landscape, you need to connect those two things together when you taste the wine. But also, if you're a sommelier or working in a wine shop, if you've actually been there, it's so much easier to sell that to somebody else. So we had talked about it a lot. We had tried to have a little event in the village to bring people there. But
where were you sort of aiming to bring people from? Was it sort of international and local, or was it?
No, local, yeah. I mean, to be honest,
originally.
Yeah, local, yeah.
Local, as in within South Africa?
Yeah.
Okay. And was
Within-
we're in Gauteng? It's a Gauteng.
Within the Cape Winelands.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was-
Even that local. Okay,
When
right.
we moved to Riebeek, if you
Drive
went-
in, drive out.
If you went to the Royal Hotel or Kasteelberg Inn, there wasn't a single Swartland wine on the list. They were selling Beten Verwachting and Meerlus. They weren't selling any Swartland wine. So we even had to convince the people who lived there about the quality. But yeah, we were invited as a group to do a seminar, like tonight's seminar with Victoria is going to be on the Swartland wine, or actually on South African Syrah in California at a 2-day incredible festival called.
And
the
how
Hospice
did they find out about you?
Well, Chris and I had
That's a
been,
long story. Yeah.
Chris and I had been
Shorten it.
Chris and I had been going to this event called the
Yeah.
Hospice de Rhone in Paso Robles, California, for a few years, and just getting to know the organizers. They'd never had a South African panel before, and so just speaking to them, they're like, well, if you were to do one, what would you do? And we're just like, well, the easy answer is Syrah, and obviously it wasn't just Swartland, because people didn't know specifically Swartland at the time. It was on, the whole of South African wineland. So David Trafford was there as well, and we presented wines from a few other wineries ourselves, but of course our own wines were up there. And after that seminar, I think we were all quite nervous because we hadn't done a lot of international audience seminars before. So we relaxed with a few glasses of wine and then a few more. And the next morning, to cure the relaxation from the night before, we all met at a historical spot called Maggie's Diner, and over huge stacks of pancakes and coffee and in like almost beer stein kind of things. We were there with Mark Kent as well, and the idea collectively was like, we need to do something like this. This is how we're going to get people to hear our story, because here we were, in a funny little town in California with an amazing 500-person international audience, and they were just glued to the story. But we were having trouble doing that in South Africa to our local audience, and that was the catalyst. That was the moment that the concept of the Swartland Revolution.
Yeah, and I think the secret of that event was it was this incredible mix of insane fun. It was a huge a weekend party, but there were these 4 hardcore geeky seminars interspersed there, really hardcore. You would have the greatest wines from around the world poured for 500 people. So
that recipe sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, but we realized how awesome that was. So people came and had an amazing time, but they also learned something and came away with this profound experience. And that was if we can replicate that in our area, teach people something, expose them to something special, but make sure they have a fantastic time. What can go wrong?
So I'm going to paraphrase here, and you can tell me if I've got it right or wrong. You were having trouble sort of getting through to the local market. Is that what is just in a sentence?
That's how it started.
Yeah, and that seems to have changed slightly. But I mean, you guys set the paradigm for how to do it from now on, and you can see all these like copycat. And I think it's probably flattery in the best sense because it worked and you do it so well.
Yeah.
Could have you done that in any other area? Do you think that because obviously there was no real established names there apart from co-ops. It was low bar. There was low expectation. Was that part of that it was sort of at the frontier, and there was no, you had to sort of get it out and push and whack your way through yourselves, or?
Hardy?
No, I don't think we could have. Yeah, I mean, with this group of people, we could have done it. But I think, the thing about the Swartland that, the Swartland Revolution, fun weekend, amazing, but what we also displayed was the amazing spirit of the Swartland, the gees of the Swartland, which transcends all fancy seminars and nonsense, but people understood that, and we were able to communicate that, and I think that was, and it started, as Eben said, from this friendship and this understanding it, looking at the Swartland, look at these incredible vineyards up in the mountains, and the diversity. I mean, it's a very big appellation, and understanding that this humility that you see when you drive up there. The first day I drove up that Jakkelsfontein Road, I said, Jakkelsfontein Road, opposite Boesmansfontein. Can you still use that name here? Drove up there. There was an amazing little farm school there.
It's an interesting name.
And no, but the feeling of the place was that you'd driven 5 or 6 hours from town to be there, and the humility. And if your neighbor Eben is the best English speaker there, then you've arrived somewhere that hasn't been seen for a long time.
Halfway to Pretoria.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I mean, and these guys have made the wines to back it up. That's the thing. You can scream and shout, and you can beat drums, and you can have amazing tastings and print banners and flyers and give people free glasses. But if the wines don't match it and back it up, then it's so pointless. Huh?
Yeah, no one's coming back.
And these guys, I mean, the wines that you guys are world class, So
the name, the Swartland bit, I get.
The name,
the revolution, the nomenclature of revolution. Is it revolting? Is it revolving? Is it still accurate? What was the idea behind the revolution part of the Swartland Revolution?
Yeah, I mean, from my point, we just wanted to change people's perception about what the region was about. It was literally just to change the 180-degree flip people's perceptions about what the Swartland was. Like that was it. Obviously, there's been ripples that have happened, but at its core, if we look back to 2009 when we were talking about it, it was how do we change people's perception about this place? That's how do we revolve them?
Get people to see it how you see it, essentially.
So that was the start.
But also being known as a bulk producing area to within 15 years being known as a fine wine producing area, that is a revolution of thought of mine. But it's not about an ongoing thing. It's about, we're always striving to do better ourselves. But now the Swartland is a fine wine producing area. That was the revolution. And, going back to how we would run the Swartland Revolution, we really showcase that we're always, trying to learn, we're trying to do better, whether it's in farming or what we're making or just fine-tuning. And the seminars were never only about Swartland producers. The main point was to actually also bring in people who inspired us, guys from the Rhone or Spain or Germany. It didn't have to be Rhone variety producing areas, but people who thought in that revolutionary way we would bring in. And then we would also have an expert's opinion panel as well, where other wine professionals, whether it was Jamie Good or Hendrik Thoma or other professionals internationally, would come and bring a selection of wines that they thought should be the next ones to inspire us as well. So it was always meant to be very educational, not just for the audience about what we were doing, but to get everyone to open their minds into what else was happening in the world and what inspired us.
Yeah, we never ever did a us and them tasting, which is quite amazing.
And the response in Gauteng, I mean, we heard this morning about Gauteng being the biggest export market for Western Cape wines, just ahead of the UK and Germany. How did the Swartland Revolution change your visits, official sort of tasting visits to sell wine, change the reception, or has it changed over that time? I mean, I'm not sure who's been coming up here the most selling their own wines, probably Chris or Artie, I would have thought, or maybe...
Yevon comes once a year.
Yeah, but he just comes...
Sells his wine.
No, he just comes and drinks Derek's Burgundy and fucks off.
Drinks like a stuff. I've been coming to Johannesburg for a lot, and I mean, it's been incredible. Yeah. Just the recognition of a place, because, you know, the first hurdle we had to overcome was and that was a massive hurdle, was Swartland Boeketraube in every single bottle store in the 80s and 90s, you know.
Was that the wine from Swartland?
That was the wine. Okay. We've still got a little bit of Boeketraube, just to honour them. But every year it's just changed. There's a more understanding and
maybe
knowledge of
maybe run us through one of your early visits here and the challenges you faced versus a most recent visit and the differences.
Look, I must say, most of the tastings I give in Joburg are not very well attended. Even in the very beginning, they've been from 12 people to maybe 18 now.
And you're using Seeing Double as well. So.
You know, no, there's just been there's a greater knowledge of the Swartland, and what is really incredible is the movement in the Swartland. Guys that are making wine there now. You know, you represent a lot of those exciting guys. And that for me really satisfying. Guys like Jasper and David Sadi and Jurgen and Craig Hawkins and Stompie and Tennis and them. It's really amazing. And they're making good wines and they're making interesting wines. And the whole region is being populated by strong individuals that are stylistically singular in what they want to produce, what they want to plant, and that is amazing. There's not a lot of fucking sheep following each other and making the same kind of wines.
I mean, it strikes me that the US it has their founding fathers, and the Swartland has their founding fathers and mother here on the stage, which is quite cool. I mean, it's really at that sort of pioneering level, and things can, as you said, they're already evolving. So has it turned into the Swartland Revolution into the Swartland evolution, like a more constant pursuit of perfection, or not pursuit of perfection, or pursuit of vision, I suppose. I mean, I think you'd all admit or own up to the wrong word. It's not a question of guilt, but you are making different wines now, or making wines differently now than you did when you first started. How has that changed? Is it the place changed? Have you changed? Has both changed? What's been the biggest influence? Has it been an influence on each other? Where I mean, I think you're going to get 5 different answers here. Yeah. Cully's been very quiet.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
Cully's in his element.
They paid to hear you, not me, mate.
100% perfect.
Yeah. So
I think maybe the part of the Swartland that's not well understood is after, I think, our third revolution, Chris, when we formed the independent.
That was in the second year, yeah.
Second year. So, second year, we started with the Swartland Revolution. We were starting with the planning. We had a discussion amongst ourselves, and one of the threats to the Swartland was actually ourselves. And, we didn't want a situation where we've built the stage now, and what we were wary of is that 4 producers could hijack a region, you know. Yeah. So in one of our evenings we sat and...
Did you have any other regions in mind when you were thinking about this? No, it was just out of the blue?
No, it was generally just a sense of recognizing, because we started to receive more attention as this group, but we realized that in itself is a future threat, and so we thought, okay, we gotta do something here. We gotta break this thing we got to open it up to more. And at that stage, that then led to the formation of the Swartland Independent, where we wrote a manifesto so that we can just all get more or less on the same page. And we formed the Swartland Independent. But with that, at that time, the Swartland Independent then built a bigger group then, but it still disenfranchised a small group outside, like some of the old cooperatives, some of the old estates. So we ran then the Swartland Independent. That then helped a bigger group build, a bigger group dynamic. But we still had inside the region now the independent and then the non-independents. And that's why in time we've watered down the independent and we're just trying to be a region now. So it's gone through 3 definitive stages because the power of the collective is all. It's not just my people, your people.
Collectivism
our
is
people.
amazing in theory.
Yes. So when you use that word, we all say we like all people, but then we're very selective in that who's that all people. So my people, your people, that kind of thing. It's basically to get like the Rastas. We want to call everybody I and I. Not me and you and whatever. So I think it's to get to that point, and I think that was if it weren't for that, we could have easily have landed in a different political rift. And we've been very mindful of that, and we've been very sensitive about it, because it's not about us. It's about a bigger thing, yeah.
Yeah, and you've made the Swartland as a place to make wine, or buy land, or grow grapes, or make wine from overall a welcoming place. I mean, you try and go in and buy some lemon outer fruit and go make some wine from them. They're not so happy about that.
Oh, they're not.
They're not really.
No, that's right.
But there is a camaraderie that exists in the Swartland, which is, I think, all tribute to you guys. And obviously, as you said, Chris, that's the type of people that it attracts, which is very, very cool. Just changing tack here a little bit, maybe concentrating on Chenin Blanc a little bit more. So, Cully, you can sit this one out for a bit, so you can, just shut up for a bit, mate. You all make Chenin Blanc blends, again, with Cully. Well, you've made them before, Cully, but what was the idea between the blend versus just making a Chenin Blanc? Because, Chenin Blanc blend is not a highly replicated style of wine the world over. It's not sort of like a Rhone red blend. Chenin and Viognier and et al. It's not really a thing anywhere else. Why is it a thing here, and why do you keep doing it if it's allegedly so hard to sell, if it is hard to sell?
It's very hard to sell. I think if we want to get away from grapes.
Don't make wine then, mate. That's a real rookie error.
No, we want to get away from people just drinking certain grape varieties, because through that you actually impoverish the world of wine. When people start thinking that Chardonnay is a brand, there's a lot of people out there in the world that think Chardonnay is a brand. And I think a lot. We had a discussion yesterday. Yesterday was about food and South Africa and the whole thing about Africanicity, or what just being African. And like, if you look at our restaurants, it's very French influenced. We have our Italian and Portuguese restaurants, but it's very French influenced. Our wine world's very French influenced. And by making Chenin blends, we could make an original South African white wine. And it's about making an original wine.
So it wasn't a deficiency you saw in Chenin that it needed something else to add to it. You really were trying to... But you kept away from Pinotage, most of you.
Not always, but...
Not always, but mostly.
Pinotage is like your brother in jail. You love him, but you can't really talk about him. So it's difficult.
You certainly don't bring him out at dinner.
But I think one more thing that I've learned about, because I love white blends because of the ability to blend, to make something super complex and balanced, working with all these different things. But I think one of the things I've learned over the last 10 years about it, which is fantastic, is it allows you to evolve over time, to bring new varieties in as climate might be changing, or if there's certain vintage that are more challenging or whatever. or as hopefully new varieties come into South Africa that are even better suited to our climate, it allows us over time to evolve and adapt and bring these things into our wines without constantly having to reinvent our brands, our labels. You know, it's Palladius, it's the Badenhorst family white. Those are wines that if you put a bit of some strange grape that no one can pronounce in there, it adds to the wine. It helps you in the farming and the winemaking, but it's not like you're constantly trying to reinvent the wheel and get people to buy something new. So I've learned that wasn't our initial plan, but it's certainly something I've come to really appreciate, and it's fantastic.
Because I mean, there was sorry, Andrea, there was a already existing sort of cachet of old vine Chenin in the Swartland, particularly the Paardeberg, and obviously extended out. Just to pop a question without notice, for those of you who have planted white grapevines in the Swartland, what percentage of those have been Chenin? Just rough numbers.
Like 70%.
Okay. We're on about 38.
Yeah, we're
What,
50,
50,
60%.
Yeah, so it's a good chunk still. Yeah, and it's above the national average of Sorry, Andrew, you were going to say something.
I was going to say Chenin, and specifically old vine Chenin. You know, when we're talking about blending grapes, it's not just like, oh, let's see if that works together. Chenin acts as the perfect core, the perfect glue to create these blends from. And
what is it about Chenin that is that?
So I mean, it's a chameleon of terroir. It's adaptability to our soil, our climate in the Swartland, still maintaining acidity, moving from those primary characteristics you get in young Chenin, you know, that kind of Granny Smith apple character. As it ages, it develops more of these umami, salty characteristics, just really highlighting its interaction with our sunshine. It's thicker skinned, so you get beautiful phenolics, and all of that together act as just a beautiful core in which other varieties pretty seamlessly work together with.
It seems like it can take a beating as well and still perform.
What do you mean, take a beating?
No, it can get ripe and then you throw it with lots of oak and it still sort of maintains some shape or form. Or you could pick it super early and it's still quite tense and, I mean, there's some varieties out there that margin of error is much narrower, it would seem, whereas Chenin has a much sort of broader stylistic landing pad or options for the grape grower and the winemaker.
Yeah, which is why you can do it as a base wine.
Yeah.
You can make off-dry, dry. I mean, we make a lot of sweet Chenin as well, and it does well across that whole spectrum and across multiple terroirs in South Africa. And I think it's quite unique to have such a expressive variety like that, where it doesn't taste the same from one vineyard to the next. Each one expresses itself, but in a very confident way, and I love that about the variety.
Awesome. Okay, we're almost out of time. The future of the Swartland is an evolution. Galmoesfontein, Opus 2.
Hey, that's our joke. Okay.
That's our joke.
Mate, if you don't want to talk, I only get there first. You had 40 minutes to say it. Roundstone. What's the future for Cully? Apparently that has changed since we had this talk last year. The future for Cully Low is different. Talk to us about that briefly, and then we can say goodbye.
No,
then you're going to get a million questions from people afterwards, but without a microphone.
I never wanted to be the guy standing in a queue for grapes, because there's a lot of pressure on the resource in the Swartland. There's a lot of really good vineyards and amazing winemakers, but I wasn't keen for that and found a good property. I would have never been, a winemaker sourcing grapes to make wine. I have to grow my own grapes, and found the place, and it's time to move on.
Do we know where this place is yet?
Paardeberg, eh?
Okay, Paardeberg. And what's the timeline on
So close to us now. We
moving?
Can touch him. We can touch him. He's gonna forming a granite now.
You're gonna have all the smoke from his.
No. Yeah, no, we'll move, get stuck in now, in the next month or so.
First harvest next year? First harvest this
next
year?
Next year, 26, yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
well, good luck and
And,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
I don't think we have any time for questions, or have we got one time? We've got one question. You what? Sorry? Oh, hang on.
Luckily, it's not an auction.
There's a question here. Colleen, do you need the microphone? No, I don't. I've got a farm boy.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to know, you first generation guys, all with your own pads, Kali joining the first generation Eitvlucht farm. What is the future of your children taking over? I mean, Marcus is on the farm now. You've got Anna Lanner, and you know we've seen how you raising your kids to be the next generation. How do you make sure that they have the same philosophies, or what is the thinking around them revolting against what you're doing?
I married a very clever wife, so my kids are going to be fine. They're not being a wine farmer. Fuck that.
No, I don't know. I
So
mean,
how obedient are your children, essentially? Is that, I think that's what she's asking.
No, I mean, you can groom them to take over. You can bring them to tastings and involve them and let them make their own wines, and you can have that approach, which has got pros and cons. You can also expose them in a way that they can see how amazing it is to make wine and farm grapes, to see how much fucking fun it is. That's the other approach. But all our children they're all individuals. They've all got their own brains, and if my kids coming to our business, it'll be quite lacquer. But I'm also not pushing them in that direction. It's my journey to make wine and a bit of land and stuff. And if one of them wants to come and join us one day, it'll be like amazing. But there's no expectations. That's what you're trying to avoid at all costs.
No.
Is that just ditto along everybody?
Well said.
I agree.
Well, except Eben's the first one whose son is now in the cellar.
So, yeah, I think it's, I mean, what Aris is completely true. Our children's a little bit older than their children. So we've got this year a 27-year-old and a 25-year-old. So
Jeez.
both married already.
Whoa.
So, and a daughter that's going to get married soon. So I'm going to be a grandfather next year.
Grandfather next year. Shit. Oh my goodness.
So,
My daughter's not allowed to date anybody until she's 30.
that's what I said to my daughter, but daughters don't really listen. They learn from their moms. No, I think generational passage in wine is important, but you can't force it. I was last year at Clerget in Burgundy. We were sitting on the deck of a friend of mine's house in Burgundy, Meursault, and we drank unbelievable wines. And I mean, he was sitting there. He's the 27th generation. You know, for 27 generations, they've been living in the same house. They've made wine in the same barn. There's something to be said of that, but there's not many companies that get to that. I think it's a dream in the back of all of our minds. But our children cannot be like us. I've truly encouraged our daughter is also getting now, she comes from a different angle more. She's the cleverest of all, so she's properly studying. She might actually speak English one day, which the rest of us have struggled with. But they can't be the same as us because they're going to live in a different reality because the world's moving on. And they can't be clones, and they need to come. You must send them out like bees, and they must come back to the hive with new pollen, new ideas. Because what our realities that applied won't be their realities. So they need, and it's great, they'll be more adaptive to that generation, and hopefully they're not lazy. That's the only thing you can hope for, that your children's not lazy. Doesn't matter what they do, they must just not be lazy. No.
Yeah, that's a bad insult. Yeah.
There's a lot of fucking lazy people on the planet.
Guilty.
Yeah, it's...
Melanixes?
No, I think these summarize it perfectly.
Yeah.
Ditto. We had another question down here, I think, or is that yes?
So I was privileged to be at the very first Swartland revolution.
Yay.
We've all aged, but 15 years ago. And I just wanted to say, you talked a lot about the different elements that came together to create the region for what it is now, and it's easy to look back and say what those are: timing, friendships, etc. Is there any advice that you have for any other region, either in South Africa or overseas, where you would say these are the things that need to be in place in order for a region to really take off in the future?
It's actually what I wanted to say just now. Anyway, is you appreciate who your neighbors are. You'll spend time with your neighbors, have dinner with them, get to know them, work together. For me, that's where it starts. And we are just so blessed to work in our region with incredible people. It's really, that's where it starts from. Being genuine, being authentic, starts from knowing each other. And we're so lucky to have Adi, Ibn, Kali, and many other people in our area. This afternoon, you're going to walk around, and there's 26 producers. They're all awesome. They're all characters. They all have unique stories. And I think that's really where it starts, with people. And Andrew and I are just blessed to have been friends and to be friends with these incredible people. That's where it starts.
Yeah, I think when you come into a region, you need to come in sort of like softly and gently, and understand the people around you, the culture around you. Ibn always tells the story, when you move to a new town and you want to meet friends, the only place you can really go to in the Swartland is the municipal swimming pool, in the days when it's still at water end.
So there's got water?
And you arrive there, because everybody's there. It's the only place with water. And you don't arrive there and put on your boombox, put on your speedo and jump somersaults off the 3-meter diving board and splash. And
couple of jazz cigarettes as well.
You buy a little ice cream with a flake in it, and you go and sit there in the shallow end with your feet in the water while that ice cream melts, and you observe and you come in gently and quietly. That is a very important thing about being in an area, if people are new to areas, to appreciate the culture of the place and get to know the neighbors and understand the history of the place. Fucking very easy to come in if you've got cash and build a highway and like a cellar, and to do that. It's been done all over the world and it never works. Never works. You alienate people. Understand the culture. Understand the history of the place. Understand the color of the mountains when they set in the summer, and you get to know that color. Might be a name for it and that's what we did in the Swartland. I think we came in quite easy and understood the people.
Assimilated.
That is exactly what I wanted to say.
I feel you, my brother. Okay, we're running out of time. We've run out of time because I think the mayor of Joburg, Michael Fridgen, is coming. And exactly. But please help me in thanking the Swartland revolutionaries.
Thanks.